Good morning, everybody. This is Laura Peterson, your host of Central Florida Real Estate Radio. I'm from Your Home Sold, Guaranteed Realty, and to discuss the sale of your home, you can call or text 407-566-2555. That's 407-566-2555. So I wanted to start out today on the stats, which I always do. I think it's always a good thing to look at in regards to what's happening here in Central Florida. And the interesting thing this week is that the sales of single-family homes is down a little bit. Like usually on a week that it's not the end of the month, it's about 750 and it's at 690 this week. But I'm not concerned about it because the last 2 weeks we were way ahead of where we normally are when it comes to the number of single-family homes that are selling. Usually, like I said, we're at about 750. And we were at 802, well, the last 3 weeks, 811, 802, and then last week was 987. And so it was significantly higher because of the end of the month and all of that kind of good stuff. So, we just have a little breather. So we'll see. I always look at the trend to see what's going on and everything, but I'm not concerned about it at all. But under 250, there were 44 of them sold. And there are 794 of them active. Now, when we're looking at these stats, they're from Orange, Osceola, Seminole, Lake, and Polk County. So those are the ones that we're looking at. Basically, they're selling at 94.6% of asking price, 47 days on the market, and 4 months of inventory. 250 to 300, there were 88 of them that sold, 97% of asking, 73 days on the market, and 3.61 months of inventory. And so then 300 to 400, 217 sold. There were 74 days on the market, 98.5 list to ask price ratio, and 4.13 months of inventory. 400 to 500, 124 sold, 98.2% of asking, 72 days on the market, and 5.1 months of inventory. That's because of the lower number this week. 500 to a million, 182 of them sold, 98% of asking, 62 days on the market, and 5.13 months of inventory. Over a million, 35 of them sold. They're at 95.5% of asking, 43 days on the market, and 7.87. So when we come overall, we're at 690 sold, 97.7% of asking, 69 days on the market, and 4.7 months of inventory. So between 4 and 6 months is considered a normal market. So we're right on the cusp, in my opinion, between a seller's market and a normal market for the single family homes. In every price point, it's a little bit different, this week, but we look at it from week to week to really see, where we're at, where we think it's going, and all of that kind of good stuff. And so, it's pretty consistent in the way that it's been for years now, ever since after COVID was over and the interest rates went up. The market has just kind of stabilized. It before that time, from 2010 to today, up until that point, it was just going up consistently until right after COVID. Then it took a big jump. And so, I think we're just normalizing basically all of that time. If we were going to be going down, I think we would have been going down. Now, I'm not saying that there aren't any areas that don't go down. Like what I have seen is in some of the more outlying areas that they have, their prices have gone down. For example, new construction in all the outlying areas, the prices for them have gone down a little bit. And I think a lot of that is affordability, and that's what people are looking at as well. So basically, when it comes down to it, it looks like everything's pretty stable. The inventory is healthy, and during COVID, we had nothing on the market. And right after COVID, we had nothing on the market. So that's what made it tough as well. So right now, everything's looking good in regards to that. So looking at the condos, townhomes, and villas, there were 149 of them that sold, and overall we're at 7.96 months of inventory. Now, The bottom line is that the condos, that they are a little bit tougher to sell when it comes down to it. Over a million, there's 42 of them on the market, and none of them sold this week. Last week there were two. The week before that there were one, and then we went 5 weeks without anything selling in that price point. But there are only 42 on the market. So when you're looking at that, we can't determine, with this week how many it is. But basically, with the last 3 weeks and looking at that, we're a pretty high months of inventory when it comes to that over a million condo. When we're looking at under 250, there were 63 of them that sold, and we're looking at 7.76 months of inventory, but it's 100 days on the market versus 47 for the houses that are the same price point. They're selling at 95.7% of market, whereas the single family homes were at 94.6. So pretty close when it comes to that stuff. And the lower end and the higher end always, for some reason, are not that close to asking price. The lower end usually because they have work that needs to be done with them. And when people are buying in the higher end, there's work that they're going to do to them, even if they're in perfect condition. So I think that that's basically the biggest thing right there. When you come between 250 and 300, there were 28 of them that sold, and they're on the market for 71 days, and that's 6.57 months of inventory. Between 300 and 400, 43 of them sold, 98.5% of asking, 73 days on the market, and 6.52 months of inventory. Between 400 and 500, there's 13 of them on the market, 98.1% of asking, 109 days on the market, and 10.48 months of inventory. Between 500 and a million, two of them sold, 98.7% of asking, 9 days on the market for those ones that sold, but 36 months of inventory. So what that's saying is the ones that sold very quickly, that when they went on the inventory, when they went on the market, and the other 314 of them that are sitting out there in inventory right now between 500 and a million are, they've been on there quite a while longer. So it's kind of an anomaly that it says that they were only 9 days on the market for the two that sold. And so basically when it comes down to it, if you've got a condo or a townhouse or a villa that's between 500 and a million, that's going to sit there. So when you're looking at 36 months of inventory based on this week, that's a long time. So you've really got to stand out. So those new properties that came on the market were what people were looking for. They priced them right or whatever, because there wasn't any negotiating room that happened in there at all. So it's pretty interesting when you look at it. And I always talk to sellers that pricing your property correctly is really, in my opinion, one of the most important things that we can do, because it's going to shorten the time on the market, number one. Number two, it's also going, and when you put a house on the market, it's going to come to market value. I've seen some houses lately that the realtors have been putting them well below market value, and then they get multiple offers immediately. And as a result of that, it raises the price up to market value. I've been watching the market now for the last 20 years or more, a little bit more than 20 years. And basically what I've found is that houses sell at market value, whether it's a short sale, a bank owned, whether it's a regular seller that's selling it, institutional person selling it, they sell at market value. And because if somebody sees something and it is way below market value, a lot of people are going to come in and go, hey, I'm going to make an offer on that. Now, that means it needs to be seen. And so that's a whole different animal when it comes down to it that has to be addressed and looked at. The way that we market, we know that if we put it on the market, we're not having the showings, we're not getting the offers, then we know it's absolutely priced, because we know what to do to make people get into the property when it's priced properly. And so, the market is what it is. We can't change the market. All we can do is operate optimally within it. And if that means that now is not the right time for you to sell your property, then that's what it means, because you can't do anything about the market because it's operating without any of outside of anything that I can do anything about. All I can do is operate optimally within it. You probably have heard me say that a million times, and that's why, because it's just basically the truth. So in order to get in touch with us, you can call or text 407-566-2555. You can find us online at centralfloridarealestateradio.com, and we will see you after the break. Welcome back, everybody. This is Laura Peterson, your host of Central Florida Real Estate Radio. I'm from Your Home Sold, Guaranteed Realty, and to discuss the sale of your home, you can call or text 407-566-2555. That's 407-566-2555. So I wanted to go over with everybody today kind of the season that we're in. As everybody knows, school just got back for a lot of people this week. Some people last week, the week before, and some people probably next week. But for the most part, school is back in session in Central Florida. And that always does affect real estate a little bit. September is one of the lowest months for sales of the year, September and January. And the reason for September, in my opinion, is people go back to school. And when people are going back to school, basically the bottom line is that everybody's lives, the schedules are changing and everything like that. So there's a disruption in regards to what's going on with people. You know, it's like you had your summer routine and now it's like, oh, okay, we're back to school. And so as a result of that, you know, everybody's busy getting all of the back into a new routine. And so housing kind of goes on the back burner in regards to if they're going to buy a house. So it's a great opportunity for people during these couple of weeks. It's only a couple of weeks that it lasts, that the numbers that will close actually being sold, because it takes about 30 days in September, will be a little bit lower than it is, you know, like was in August or, you know, July or any other months, you know, and all of that kind of stuff. And the same thing happens in January because of the holidays, because everybody's got so many parties and different things that they're going to, that housing sometimes takes a back burner. So it's not a huge dip, but it is enough of a dip that to me it's noticeable. And so as a result of that, you know, if you're a buyer out there right now looking for a home, it's a great time because you don't have as many people paying attention, you know, and again, it's just a couple of week window. But it's something that you should definitely take advantage of if that's what you're looking for. You know, I was at a house last week that had, I was talking in the last segment about if you put the price too low, that you're going to get multiple offers and get them above asking and have it taken to the market value. And that's exactly what was going on. When I went through the gate to actually see this house, it was in a gated community, and the gate guard said, wow, you know, there's been a lot of people come through here today looking at that house. And I said, well, they priced it really good. And so as a result of that, they have a lot of people that want to see it and get it and all of that kind of thing. And it went well above asking, I know. I had some buyers that put an offer on it and they were not high enough on it. And so, and they were well above asking. So basically when it comes down to it, you know, it's like that is definitely a thing that people can do, like I was talking about in the last segment. But the other side of the coin is that for you as a buyer, you know, you're not going to have as many people out there. I mean, obviously the houses that are way cut down, you know, you're still going to get a lot of people that are coming to see them, but the average everyday house that's out there is not going to have the traffic, and those anxious sellers are going to be much more amenable to giving you what you want, whether that be closing costs, which is very common in our market today in regards to what's going on. And so that's that. I mean, and what I mean by that is that when I'm looking at the sales data, and I should look again, but when I'm looking in a particular neighborhood, when I'm talking with a seller and I'm looking at what the comparable properties are selling for, and then I'm looking if the seller has given any concessions on that, because what shows up is the price, right? But what's not showing up to the public always is the amount of concessions that are being given to the buyer. So, when the market was really hot and we had a half a month's inventory, there were no seller concessions being given. The properties were pretty much all selling for cash. There weren't any contingencies. People were selling well above asking. They were selling well above appraisal price. All of those things were going on because that was a status of the market. But when you're looking at where we are today, with adequate inventory and all of that kind of thing, and there are other houses that people can choose, the sellers are giving concessions. And most of the time they're in the neighborhood of probably about 3% on average, maybe a little bit more, maybe a little bit less. On a conventional loan, they'll allow 3%. On an FHA loan, they'll allow 6%. Most sellers don't want to give anything above 3, but most do give 3. So when you're looking at the price that somebody paid for a house, that's something that's not available to the general public and not something that you would definitely know. But it's something that, it's good to know when you're going into negotiations and a seller says, well, we don't want to give up any concessions. Well, basically, when the bottom line comes down to it, and you can show them that, hey, we're looking at these comps and they've all given concessions, then that's something that they'd have to pay attention to. And appraisers pay attention to that as well. So on every appraisal report, it says, were there concessions given and how much were they? So that they are comparing apples to apples. So it's really, really interesting to look at, and a lot of nuances that you as a buyer don't necessarily know or think about or whatever. And as a seller, you're not necessarily looking at them or whatever before it's time to as well. So you're just looking at that house saying, wow, that sold for that price. I'll sell my house for that price, not realizing that they may have given up, 10, 20, 30,000, in concessions to basically make that happen. I remember I was selling a house and it was $1 million+ house, and basically I had a buyer. Well, actually, I wasn't selling that house. Actually, I had a buyer that wanted to buy this particular house, and it was the same floor plan of another one that sold, and it actually had $100,000 of concessions on it. So the price that was listed in all the public records and everything of what it sold for was actually $100,000 higher than the house actually sold for when you net out, what that buyer paid for. So what that means is that the buyer got a credit on the closing statement of $100,000. Now, why did they do that? Maybe they had higher loan costs that they wanted to get covered and finance it in. Maybe there was something else that they were financing it in. I don't know. But basically, the bottom line is it was $100,000. So when the agent was telling me, hey, this house is worth this because of that house, I said, no, when you look at it, it's $100,000 less. And so it gave me negotiating power to go in there and do something else. And I think that that's the most important thing, that when you're looking at it, that you've got to have your I's dotted and T's crossed to know why you're asking for that and what's going on in the market and what the competition is doing, so that your seller doesn't lose out on something because they weren't aware of that. And we talk about that before we even put it on the market, by the way, as well as the buyer, going in there, being able to get, negotiate the best thing that they're looking for and making it happen as well. So in order to get in touch with us, you can call or text 407-566-2555. You can find us online at centralfloridarealestateradio.com, and we'll see you after the break. Welcome back, everybody. This is Laura Peterson, your host of Central Florida Real Estate Radio. I'm from Your Home Sold, Guaranteed Realty, and to discuss the sale of your home, you can call or text 407-566-2555. That's 407-566-2555. So I wanted to go over today a little bit on the tax amendment that's coming up, because there was a little bit of controversy and everything that happened with it this week. A Tallahassee judge ruled that the original ballot language for the tax amendment was misleading, and part of it read more like a slogan than a neutral description, is basically what it was. So they had to rewrite it. So the new title is, the title was Save Our Homes from Excessive Property Taxes, which obviously does sound, a little biased and all that kind of stuff, to increased homestead exemption, lower cap on increases in non-homesteaded property assessments. So that's basically what it does. We've talked about that exhaustively in the last few weeks. But but in a nutshell, it raises the homestead exemption from 100 to 150,000 for most homeowners in 2027 and up to 250,000 in 2028, indexed to inflation going forward. And it needs 60% voter approval in November to pass. And basically, the old language claimed that the amendment would lead to full elimination of property taxes, and that the text doesn't support that, so that's gone. And now it just says that the legislature would have to create a process for local governments to raise the exemption up to full assessed value and let special districts do the same via referendum. So the important thing to know is new residents who move to Florida after 2026 would have to wait 5 years before getting the higher exemption. And so one of the plaintiffs, Senator Jeff Brandeis, I'm not sure how you pronounce his name, argues could be unconstitutional. And so that's something that, is in there right now. But basically, so basically that's kind of the update in regards to what's going on with that. And so plaintiffs have 10 days to object to the new wording. So it still could shift before November, and so we'll keep you posted in regards to what's going on with that. Basically what it said that DeSantis said that he was not going to, lobby for it. He actually wanted the schools to be included in it, but it's not. And but he said he was going to vote for it. So that's what the article that I read that said that about that. So the next thing that I thought I would talk about was a great thing that I think is going on right now that talks about how Florida are drawing movers across all generations. So I remember that everybody used to say that Florida was just a place where people came to retire and that was it. And so now it's definitely not that. But so U-Haul data from July of 2025 to June of 26 shows Florida is the only state with the top 10 net migration gain across all four generations. So that's baby boomers, Generation X, Millennials, and Gen Z. So Florida ranked number 1 nationally for both Generation X and Millennials, number 3 for baby boomers, and number 8 for Gen Z. Orlando ranked number 3 nationally among Millennials, direct relevance for our Central Florida market. And other Central Florida metros making the list, Lakeland and Winter Haven was number 6 for Millennials. Palm Bay, Melbourne, and Titusville were number 8 for Millennials. And Gainesville, Ocala was number 1 for baby boomers and number 10 for Generation Xers, which kind of makes sense. There are a lot of 55 plus communities up there in that Ocala area, but Gainesville, where University of Florida is, doesn't seem like that would be the number 1 for baby boomers, but maybe it's a little bit different. So basically, that's kind of what's going on. So the baby boomers, well, not the baby boomers necessarily, the people that are aged 55 to 64 drove the state's largest net household income inflow in 23-24 at 7.6 billion, suggesting a wave of pre-retirement movers then, or at the near of their peak earning years. And so that, when you listen to that, that actually makes sense when it comes down to seeing in regards to what's going on with our particular, area and all of that kind of good stuff, and what's happening, that the market is staying very stable. Now, our area, from what I understand, and I've done a little bit of research on it in the Miami area, they're still going up, up, up in regards to that area. So they probably have a lot more people coming in and all of that down there in Miami than we do in Central Florida. But Central Florida is what we look at, and that's why we've got to look at everything local. In other areas of the country, there could be a lot worse than us, and the markets are going down, especially with people leaving that part of the country and everything like that. But we've got everything is very stable, and we see that. Another thing that I saw that I thought was interesting this week is that our number of apartments complexes has really kind of gotten to the point where, we're getting to where we needed to be. We were so low in rental property that, everywhere you turned around, there were new properties that were being built, and you'd look at them and you'd go, gosh, is anybody going to be here to live at them? And then the next week you drive by and you see the parking lots completely full with everybody living there. And so you would just wonder, hey, it's like, what's going on? And they would always talk about a housing shortage, and you'd go, is there really a housing shortage? And definitely there was one. And you can see that in the rentals when it comes to the single family homes and all of that as well. When we're looking at the single family homes and the rentals, you've got to price those right, just like you do a house that's for sale. Basically, what I've seen change in the last couple, 3 years is that you would put a house on the market that was a rental property, and it would go in hours. I mean, people would just take it, in hours, and you didn't have to worry about the price too much or anything like that. People would just take it. And, pretty much everybody was within that realm in regards to what was going on. At the same price, at the same time that the houses were going up, all of a sudden the rental prices went up too. And I'm talking like significantly, like they went from, there was a house I know of that went from $1,750 to $2,450, and it went in 2 years, that amount of money. So and they've kind of stayed there. So you get a lot of calls from people that they say, hey, basically this is kind of the price in regards to, what the owner wants. And then people call and they're like, well, I don't want to pay that amount of money. So they'll go somewhere else, is basically what's going on. And so if you've got it priced right, just like a house, you're going to get it sold or get it under contract. But if you don't have it in the right price point, then you're going to have a harder problem. So I was talking to an owner that has a house, and they bought it from another. They're in another state, and they had bought this house sight unseen, and somebody had told them about it, and they told them what they were going to get a return on investment on the property and all of that. And so they went ahead and they purchased this home, and now they've got it up for rent, and they're about $500 a month higher than that area will bear. And so as a result of that, they're not going to be able to get that rent. It's just not, it's not going to happen. They were looking at another property that was in the neighborhood that also was overpriced in the amount of rent that they wanted to get for it. And it was just sitting there on the market. when you're talking about a rental property that you've got every month that goes by, if you're talking the amount this property should be for is about 2,100 and it's at 2,650. And basically, so every month that goes by, you've lost that $2,100 that you were going to be making. So, it if you don't rent it, and you never rent it for that price, and you're going to eventually rent it for 2,100, the faster that you come to that realization is the better it's going to be for your pocketbook in order to make things happen, right? And so, when you're going into an investment property, I think it's just important to know to look at it, with your eyes wide open and look at the properties of what they have actually rented for, as opposed to what people wanted to rent them for. So if an investor that owns the property wants to rent it for 3,000 and ends up renting it for 2,400, then you need to look at that 2,400 number, not at that 3,000 number. And that's unfortunately what this particular person had done. And so they're a little bit off base in regards to their pricing. So everything comes to the market, said it before earlier in the show, we can't change the market. We can only operate optimally within it. And that's what we do on a daily basis. So in order to get in touch with us, you can call or text 407-566-2555. You can find us online at centralfloridarealestateradio.com. And we'll see you after the break. Welcome back, everybody. This is Laura Peterson, your host of Central Florida Real Estate Radio. I'm from Your Home Sold, Guaranteed Realty, and to discuss the sale of your home, you can call or text 407-566-2555. That's 407-566-2555. So I wanted to go over a little bit today in regards to what you need to do to get your house ready to sell. But the thing that I also want to tell you is that if you don't want to get your house ready to sell and you just want to sell it, you can do that today. And basically, when it comes down to it, it's kind of like a car. When you're looking at a car and you're going to buy a new car, basically you have the car that you have right now, you have the option of driving it into the dealer and then determining whether or not you're going to leave it there and get a credit on the house that you're buying, or you're going to go ahead and take your two cars away from the car dealer when you're picking up the new one, and you're going to sell the other one on the street or whatever, something like that. So we all know that if you sold it on the street and did that, you would probably make more money, a little bit more money in regards to the amount that you're going to get for that car. And so as a result of that, for the convenience, most people probably turn it in at the dealership. I know I do. And so as a result of that, that same principle exists in housing, and we have it. And so we have multiple companies that will come in and purchase your home, let you move on to your new home, and then sell your own old home. Now, there's multiple ways to do this. And most of the time, when we run it through our platform that spits out all the offers, it comes out between 14 and 15 different options in regards to what you could have. Some of the companies have the same kind of model, and some of them are different. Some of them are straight cash. Those you might get a little bit less. Some of them are what we call a two-step offer, which means that they're going to give you the majority of your money now. Now, based on this market, they're probably going to give you in the neighborhood of about 80% of the money of your house right now. Okay? What happens on that is that then you move out. They come in, and if there's anything that needs to be done to make it better, like if it needs new carpet, if it needs to be painted, anything like that, all that stuff is agreed to up front, and they do all that stuff. Then they put it back on the market, they sell it, and you get the additional profit. And what they charge for this is somewhere between 6 and 7% usually. So what you have to look at it is that that's the discount that you're getting or that you're taking for actually selling a house this way, is about 6 or 7%. So if you got a $400,000 house, then that's a $20,000 decision in regards to that, which maybe maybe 25,000, somewhere in that range. And for the convenience and the hassle and not having to have your house in show ready condition, not having to do anything now, all of that kind of stuff does appeal to a certain percentage of the market. There's other companies that come in that say you do need a new roof, say you do need new carpet. They'll come in and they'll actually upgrade your house, and then you can put it on the market for a higher price, and they'll get paid for the service that they did at closing. Not any additional fees, just for the construction fees or the roofing fees or whatever it is that they do. So basically, when it comes down to it, and that makes your house stand out more, and you're definitely going to get the amount of money. There are a lot of buyers out there that when they look at a house and they see a lot of stuff to do or it needs a new roof, and they're like scraping by just to get the house to begin with, and then they're going, oh, I don't have the money to put a new roof on within the next 6 months or a year. How am I going to do that? They'll discard the house. And that's not something that you as a seller want to do. So there's all kinds of ways to solve your problem, I guess, is what I'm trying to say in regards to doing this, and make your home buying and selling process a lot easier than it's been in the past. And obviously there's certainty when it comes to that, because you've got the bulk of your money and you don't have to worry about it. There are companies that are going to come in and they're going to buy it outright, but they're going to take a little bit of a discount because they're going to make a profit on it. And, that fudge factor of, what are we going to make a little bit more or less on this house, they're going to err on the side of we're going to make less, and they're going to put that money in their pocket. And so where these other companies that they're coming in there, they're just like, hey, this is our percentage. We want 5%, and that's it all day long. And we'll take a little bit of the deal, and that's all we're looking for. And so they make it happen. So there's all kinds of opportunities out there for sellers today. But if you do want to sell your house the normal way, which we do that with people all the time, the traditional way, as you will, is that basically the number one thing that you have to look for when you're doing your house is curb appeal. And basically, when it comes down to it, you have to make sure that you've mulched, pressure washed your driveway and walkway, trim overgrown landscape, fresh front door paint often works. That's the highest ROI dollar item in regards to what's going on. But, the neighborhood is going to affect it too. The curb appeal of the neighborhood. Your house could look great, but if your next door neighbor's yard isn't, the grass isn't cut, that could definitely, affect things. I know people that they've gone ahead and cut their neighbor's yard because they wanted their house to look nice and everything. And they obviously got permission from the neighbor, and they just said, hey, we're going to be selling our house. Do you mind if I cut your yard for you? And they were like, yeah, go for it, So basically, curb appeal is the number one. Next thing is declutter is the next thing that you can do. And I tell everybody, take a picture with your phone and then look at it. And you're going to see things that you didn't see before. It's like everything on your counter, it looks fine. It's great. You're used to it, all of that kind of stuff. And then you take a picture and you look at it and you go, wow, there's a lot of stuff on my counter. And so basically that's something that is really important as well. Deep cleaning versus staging. The difference between a clean house and a staged house. And staged houses, we don't have a lot of staged houses necessarily where you would think of that people rent furniture and they come in and do that. That does happen. And generally those companies won't do it if you've got pets and that kind of stuff, because there's a chance they could ruin their furniture. If you've got a vacant house, that might be something that you want to do. If you do want to virtually stage where they put it in the pictures and everything, that's something that has to be disclosed to the public. So it's not that great, but cleaning is super, super important. That's something that we think is very critical in regards to, what you do. And basically, you've got to know the smells of your house. Now, basically, when it comes down to it, if you've got a smell to your house, generally you become nose blind to it, as that old commercial used to say, that you would become nose blind and you wouldn't even smell it. But somebody coming into your house for the first time, they do, and that's definitely a turnoff. I was listening to a book this week, Start With Why by Simon Sinek. I've read it before, but I was put it on Audible and when I'm driving around. And basically what he was talking about is he was talking about the laundry industry, and he was saying that before it was always that everybody would say, hey, it's the challenge with that everybody wanted it lighter and brighter and all of that was what they advertised. But when they finally asked people what they wanted, is they wanted their laundry to smell good. And so I thought about that, and I hadn't, and that is what they all advertise, is what the smell is and everything now today. And it's the same thing with your house. So you've got to go ahead and look at it and from that angle and all of that kind of good stuff. But we're out of time for today. So in order to get in touch with us, you can call or text 407-566-2555. You can find us online at centralfloridarealestateradio.com. And we'll see you next week. Have a great one, everybody. Bye-bye.